The voice you heard was Nicole Bunt. She is our Vice President of External Affairs and Communication, and I'll be reintroducing Nicole to go over the survey results. I'm Barry Duvall, President of the Virginia State Chamber of Commerce, and I'm pleased to be joined here by my co-host, Billy Beal, Chair of GO Virginia Region 6, and also Kat Mosley, who'll be giving a few words on the business community's perspective. She's the one in the construction hat. And I think a little bit later, you'll also hear from Curry Roberts, who is representing the Virginia Economic Development Authority. We are beginning on time, so we can end on time. We have been able to promise you about 1 hour and 10 minutes of interaction. We hope for about 30 of that to be where we hear from you. We're very interested in you answering the question, what would you like to see in your region occur to help your region be competitive? And we want to hear your thoughts on what you think would be most impactful for us to include in our new strategic plan to make your region grow and prosper. I will explain a little bit for those of you who are new to the process of Blueprint Virginia, and I will give you an insight into that process and how it's been used in the past. But in short, the Virginia Chamber is just facilitating a process with over 90 business organizations and thousands of business people. And we'll present the new blueprint, a long-term strategic plan, to the newly elected governor in December. And Curry, I'll introduce you later, but welcome. Glad you could participate as a panelist as well. So with that, we're going to get started. And before I share a brief PowerPoint giving you an update on the blueprint process and the economic profile of Virginia, your region, and some of the challenges, I did want to thank some of our other participants today. GO Virginia as our partner in this, and I mentioned Billy Beal as the chair, but really a lot of the work's being done by our state partners and at Department of Housing Community Development, Eric Johnston and Sarah Dunnigan. At the state level, I also want to thank Jennifer Morgan for her work as the coordinator in this region. I thank Connie Long for helping us and with Virginia Economic Developers Association as well. And I also want to thank my partners across the state in the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Michelle Jajour, as well as Mylan Tran with the Asian Chamber of Commerce. And I'll be hopefully recognizing Susan Spears a little bit later in the program, our regional chamber partner. And I want to thank the West Point Chamber, Larkin Garby, and the Lancaster Chamber, Annika Parapella, for joining us as well. I have a couple of board members on here as well from Huntington Ingalls, John Arena, and also you all know John Hewa from Rappahannock Electric Co-op. So a number of important participants, representatives from the community college, Mary Washington University, as well as from Senator Warner's office. I want to thank Louise Kadar. So with that, thank you all for being here. We're going to have about 30 minutes at the end to hear directly from you. Please use the chat or questions Q&A feature to put your questions in as well. Laura on our communications team is going to share the screen. I'm going to go through about 10-minute presentation, Billy, before I call on you. And just to say, for those of you who just arrived, welcome to the GO Virginia Region 6 public hearing for the Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the Blueprint Virginia 2030 process. You're in the right place and your voice is important, and thank you for participating. Next slide. We at the State Chamber have a vision to be the voice of Virginia business, just as the Fredericksburg Chamber and the other regional and local chambers are the local regional voice of business. We're the voice of business for the Commonwealth of Virginia, proud to be that voice of business and to work with you to ensure we have the very best business climate. The next slide, Laura. We at the State Chamber have a commitment to being nonpartisan business advocates. We endorse ideas, but we don't endorse candidates. We're very actively engaged in the implementation of those ideas through legislation and regulatory oversight. Next slide. Through our Alliance membership, we've been able to grow to over 27,000 members now, representing about 1 million+ workers in the Commonwealth of Virginia through these employers. And we're pleased to work with local chambers as our allies, such as many of the chambers on the call today. Next slide. Simply stated, our goal is to make sure Virginia is known as the best state for business, and we do all we can to enhance this reputation. That's part of why we developed the blueprint. We should take a moment and celebrate our successes. Back in 2019, we received the top state for business as a Commonwealth. We've recently been recognized by Wallet Hub as #1 in public schools in the South, by Smart Asset, #2 in state higher education. We've also seen business facilities, which is an important ranking, rank us in #1 in cybersecurity, as well as digital infrastructure, and very high rankings in workforce and business climate as well. We've also seen new rankings coming out around innovation, and we're pleased to receive the top 5th ranking by Wallet Hub as an innovative state. Next slide. And we have the privilege in Virginia of being the 2nd highest per population state where military retirees reside. And we've been ranked #1 in the country by Wallet Hub for best states for military retirees. Very important for your region as well as ours. And #7 under US News for best states in business, but #5 in terms of equality and equity. And we're leaning in on that topic more now, and you'll see that as part of our blueprint. We recently celebrated moving up 3 spots in the CEO Chief Executive ranking, and we just moved up to the slot from 16 to 13. We certainly expect to be higher than that when we can finish the blueprint and implement it next year, but we're seeing steady progress in that ranking as well. I talked about technology a little bit, and this is an eye-opening perspective on how many data centers there are in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we'll share these slides with you all, but you can see the number that are throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, and why Virginia has over 50% of the world's internet traffic passing through Virginia every day. We also have significant technology ecosystem that needs to be supported by a robust workforce, and we'll see that emerge as a top priority for Blueprint Virginia as we develop our long-term plan. And you all are in the middle of this and have seen some recent announcements in logistics and transportation. Take a look at that box up on the top, and you'll see a number of companies that have chosen your region for this purpose. But a large and diverse distribution and logistics hub is something that is helping grow the Virginia economy. We want to continue to make sure we weigh in on how we can be successful in this area. So you all have had a very active economic development season for announcements. Just a quick recap once we identify the number of communities in Region 6, and I'll yield to Billy Beal and others to talk more about this in a few minutes. But next slide will show you the profile of your region in terms of population and annual wages and some of the targeted industries that have been identified. I was saying to someone the other day that Region 6 has it all. It's got significant rural communities with some of the most beautiful rural and water's edge communities in Virginia. It also has some of the most growing counties and areas at the intersection of transportation. It's such a wonderful, unique region. Next slide. And the number of announcements in the last 12 months during this pandemic have been very significant, and I commend all of you in economic development and local government for these announcements. Here's a quick summary of the totals, and take a look at the number of existing expansions as well as the number of new companies in 2019 and 2020. During a pandemic, I would say this is a stellar performance to see the continued expansion and the recruitment of new business and jobs into your region. So the blueprint process is one where we get to put our fingerprints on the future of the Commonwealth's business plan by acting collectively. In 2013, we presented the first blueprint to Governor McAuliffe and helped implement and grow our national rankings as a result of implementing Blueprint Virginia in 2013. 4 years later, we presented our next blueprint to the current governor and have been working to improve the business climate in our national rankings since 2017. And now we see that we have been able to focus on 9 competitive areas and we're expanding these for Blueprint 2030. But by far, in every region, workforce readiness has emerged as one of the top priorities of Blueprint and the region. We've been on a roller coaster ride since 2009 with the sequestration setting in and the lack of federal spending and the financial crisis plummeting Virginia out of the top 10 in our national rankings. This is an average of 4 different rankings, both quantitative and quantitative and subjective rankings, CNBC, Chief Executive, Forbes, and Site Selection. But you can see how well we've advanced in our rankings, and we're continuing to move up as we implement the strategies outlined in a nonpartisan way with Blueprint Virginia. The question for us as a business community across the Commonwealth and in your region is, what does the future look like? And what sort of advocacy do we need to implement in order to ensure our business climate remains friendly, we have the right tax policies, the right investments in workforce and transportation to remain competitive? If we implement all the areas in Blueprint as we go forward, I think we'll be a top 5 state. Only some of them will be a top 10 state. But if we see threats to our business climate, we will be challenged as we go forward. And the legislative trend lines recently has been a concern to some of the business community in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Next slide. You all know about the economic challenges. I'll briefly show you some of the slides that compare what we've been through to what we've been through in the past. The last year, as a result of solving the healthcare crisis, we obviously saw government shut down the economy. But because of that, this recession recovery has been much different. The 1990-94 recession in gold took longer to get into and longer to get out of. The financial crisis in 2008, likewise, a little bit longer to get into than the one we're in and longer to get out of, although it was better than the other one. And then this one quickly plummeted into unemployment rates, but we are seeing a quick recovery as well as the vaccine is successful. Next slide. We've also seen the impact on unemployment filings across the country and unemployment benefits paid, over 12 billion across the country, and then over 1.5 million Virginians filing, about 20% of our workforce and population filing, and over 30% of our small businesses have closed and may not reopen. We know that leisure, hospitality, and non-essential retail was most greatly impacted. When you look at the job loss over a 12-month period and a little bit further, this is actually updated through May of 2021 from February of last year. Leisure and hospitality being the most impacted nationally. And then, of course, within the Commonwealth, we know the same has been true. Leisure, hospitality, non-essential retail has lost the most number of jobs. And we know the tourism and hospitality industry is so meaningful. And in Virginia, the industry accounted for more than 45% of the job loss. Again, significant challenges with revenue lost. And now, unprecedented staff shortages. We're facing increase in wages and a shortage of workforce. And we really need to have some innovative programs to bring the workforce back. This is just a graphic that shows you the significant unemployment insurance claims that were filed from March of 20 through June of 21. We're definitely trending in the right direction. Next slide. And this is just a graphic to show you how Virginia, where we were and where we are. And obviously we're heading in the right direction, but still we have a lot more jobs to recover than we had originally back in February of 2020. Not every region has experienced the same employment changes. The darker shaded areas actually are those that were most hit with unemployment. The lighter shaded areas are those that were less hit. As you can see from this slide, your region fared better than some of the other regions of the Commonwealth. And then just looking at unemployment from February of 20 through May of 2021, I'm very pleased to say Virginia has fared better than the nation. Virginia's the blue line there, the darker blue line, the gray line is the United States. part of that is because Virginia has had such a high number of knowledge-based workers and essential workers that had to stay in the stream of commerce. And as a result, we've been able to keep more people employed in the Commonwealth, and our state economy is stronger because of it. Nevertheless, we still have fallen short of our full employment. I asked VEDP, and they were able to put together some projections as when we might reach back to the level of employment across the Commonwealth. And right now, the projections are for the second quarter of 2022, but we expect continued growth after that. Not all Virginians have fared the same. I'll show you a few slides before I close about the blueprint process. The urban crescent experiencing much faster recovery, obviously, than the rural areas of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Next slide. And of course, the change in US employment really did impact individuals based upon their profile, based upon their education levels, those with bachelor's degree or higher versus those without, non-whites and Hispanics, as well as women, much more severely impacted in these percentages than other people groups. The next slide just has a different way of showing you similar information. This is from February of 20 to 21. Now, these numbers have improved since February of 21, but clearly Black unemployment levels of unemployment and Hispanic and Asian Americans and people with disabilities much more significantly impacted. So we want to keep these facts in mind as we put together the new blueprint. And we know that we've had a big loss and we continue to be challenged in the area of student learning. Nationally, over 800,000 students did not go to higher institutions of learning in the last 12 months than applied the previous months. I know we're getting a bump right now for the fall, but that may level off. We've seen student enrollment drop. We know there's a global competition for talent. So we want to respond to the current trends. We want to put forward a blueprint that will last through the next gubernatorial cycle and into the following one. And we think this time is right for us to work with businesses and regions across the Commonwealth to put forward a business plan that represents your priorities for your region, as well as statewide priorities in a nonpartisan way. You all have been so gracious to be part of the process, and this is one of our regional meetings. We're also collecting data through signature events and other strategic partnerships that we have. Our timeline is before you. We kicked this off at our Economic Summit virtually last December. We're having our committee meetings this fall, as well as regional steering committee meetings. And thank you for the partnership with VEDA and the GO Virginia Foundation. And we expect to bring all of this together by the end of September, beginning of October, for our steering committee and advisory board to bring final approval. And we hope you'll join us December 3rd to release the blueprint in Richmond and hopefully present it to the newly elected governor at that time. Obviously, we've been working on this regional tour. Thank you for participating today. We have a few more left. We're right in the middle of the process. And again, I've got a box around the 12th Annual Virginia Economic Summit, December 3rd. We have determined that the location will be in Richmond at the Convention Center. We'd love for you to mark your calendars. And I also just show you, this is really, while an organizational chart profiles the people at the top, is where your eyes go often to when you see an org chart. I would encourage you to look at the bottom. It's really a bottom-up process. While the steering committee has an opportunity to set the timeline and the process and some of the priorities, it's really the input from the regional groups and the regional partnerships we have with chambers and GO Virginia and economic development groups that helps us establish the priorities, that make recommendations to our advisory council, and likewise, the specific policy committees make recommendations, all to be approved by the steering committee and our board. Thank our sponsors across the Commonwealth for leaning in on this process and assisting us and believing in the work that we're doing. And these are the logos of the companies that have supported this process this year. I also want to thank our steering committee co-chairs, Nasik Keen, Chief Executive Officer of SAIC, and Ed Bain, president of Dominion Energy Virginia. And I want to share with you the results of your survey. For that purpose, I'm reintroducing Nicole Bunce. And thank you, Nicole, for all the work you're doing to make sure that we're getting public input. And I'll turn it over to you to review the results of the survey for Region 6.
Thank you so much, Barry. Before I start, I just wanted to recognize that Liz Povar had put in the chat the announcement about the 180 million expansion of Nestle in King William County. I actually put the link to the governor's announcement in the chat if you're interested in learning more about that. And Liz, thank you so much for highlighting that as we continue to build on the expansion announcements live in the meeting. So as Barry mentioned, throughout the Blueprint Virginia 2030 process, we've had several different implementation methods to survey members of the Commonwealth. So earlier this year in the spring, we had launched our statewide survey on our website. I'm going to ask a member of our team to drop the link to that in the chat. If you haven't had the opportunity to participate in our statewide survey, we encourage you to do that. That survey is going to be open through the end of July. We encourage you to send that to your colleagues within the region to ensure that we have as much participation as possible. We're also surveying our different policy committees and creating customary or custom surveys for all of our signature events. But what we're here to focus on today is our regional meeting surveys. As you know, as soon as you registered to participate in the event, you should have received a link to our region survey. This survey is specific to Region 6, and I'd like to highlight some of the preliminary results. If you didn't have the opportunity to participate yet, it is not too late. We are also keeping that survey open through July 30th. If you registered for today's event, we'll go ahead and send you another follow-up email after our event today with that link, and we encourage you to participate in that survey as well. So let's transition to the next slide and review some of the preliminary results. So the first question in the survey was, Virginia's economy is headed in the right direction. 15% strongly agree, 62% had mentioned they agree. We have surveyed regions 1, 2, 3, and 4 so far, and we've seen consistent that above 50% of participants have either, in all regions, have mentioned they either strongly agree or they do agree. Next question. Virginia is doing a good job preparing the workforces that businesses need. I will mention that this is consistent in regions 1, 2, 4, and 6, and 3 as well, that over half were either neutral or they disagree. This means that this is an area that we need to continue to work on, and we hope to provide some recommendations in Blueprint 2030 to address this. Next question. Virginia has an environment that encourages entrepreneurs and businesses to innovate. We saw 54% agree, 6% strongly agree, but we do have some substantial percentages that disagree or they're neutral. And again, this is another area of opportunity as we develop Blueprint Virginia 2030. Next slide. Which areas do you believe have the most impact on Virginia's overall economic competitiveness? If you did participate in the survey, you know that we had a list of probably 15 to 20 different areas of focus. We go ahead and took the top 5 answers for this. So number 1 was workforce and education. Number 2 was innovation and technology. Number 3 was transportation. And a tie for 4 was housing and business climate. Next slide. If Virginia could make additional investments, education and workforce development programs, where should those investments go? Number 1 was internships, apprenticeships. I will note in regions 1, 2, 3, and 4, this is the top answer. It was the top answer in Blueprint 2025 as well. We expect it will be the top answer in the rest of the regions that we haven't surveyed yet. Number 2, consistent in all the regions as well, is K through 12. And number 3 is community colleges. In the regions that we've surveyed, we've noted that the number 3 answer was either community colleges or early childhood education. So we've seen those kind of pinging back and forth in the regions of what the number 3 priority is. Next slide. Where do you think Virginia should be concentrating its infrastructure investments? Again, every region we've surveyed, number 1 answer is broadband. Number 2, transportation, which usually ranks high in all of the other regions as well. Number 3, water sewer. Next slide. What is the most important component of healthcare to businesses and their workforce? Number 1, affordability and total cost of care. Number 1 answer across all of the regions that we've surveyed so far. Number 2, quality of care. Number 3, accessibility. Next slide. What is the greatest priority regarding energy? Number 1, reliability. 2, affordability. And 3, decarbonization. Next slide. What is the best way for Virginia to increase the number of advanced manufacturers in the Commonwealth? Number 1, across Most regions is actually build the workforce of the future. In this region, it was invest in research and development to grow these opportunities. Number 3, consistent across every region, is increase the number of business-ready sites for development. Next slide. What approach would be the most effective for the state to take to support sustainability efforts and encourage environmental stewardship? Number 1, across all regions, improve public infrastructure and lead by example. Number 2, financial incentives. Next slide. What's Region 6's greatest barrier to affordable and quality housing? Number 1, low inventory. 2, population density. And number 3 is other. We would like to thank those of you that went the extra to note. If you didn't see the answer that you believed was the greatest barrier, Representative, put your own answers in there for consideration as part of our blueprint process. Next slide. What is the greatest area for improvement in preparing for the next pandemic across all regions? Early detection and mitigation through our public health infrastructure. Next slide. Which of these tools would be most helpful for businesses to encourage hiring veterans as they transition out of the military? Again, number 1, across all regions, standard definition of military skill sets that translate to civilian industries. Next slide. For Region 6, what is the most important potential infrastructure investment? Number 1, increase broadband for underserved areas. 2, transportation networks. And number 3, additional business-ready sites and schools. And that was a tie for number 3. Next slide. For Region 6, what is the most important industry for continued growth? Number 1, IT and data centers. 2, aquaculture, commercial fishing, and seafood processing. And also number 2, advanced manufacturing. There was a tie for those 2 answers. Next slide, and then I will just conclude by, if you haven't had an opportunity to participate in the survey already, please do so. We'll go ahead and resend you that link. We hope you'll also participate in the statewide survey. We want to ensure that we get your observations through the lens of just your region, but also as a Commonwealth. So through this survey, we want to see how you felt your region was doing. We want to ensure that we also are capturing your thoughts on a statewide level. And we hope you'll join us, as Barry mentioned, for our economic summit on December 3rd. All this information is going to be sent to you later today. So if you were taking screenshots, don't worry about it. We'll ensure that we send you all of the data after the meeting. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Barry.
Thank you, Nicole, for going through that information. And again, for those of you participating, use the Q&A feature for your questions or raise your hand when we begin the open discussion, and we'll call on you to have your voices heard as well. Billy, I want to thank you for your business leadership in Virginia for over 3 decades and building the largest community-based bank in Virginia. And recognized you as a business leader, what is now Atlantic Union Bank, formerly Union Bank Shares. I've had a chance to work with you for over a decade, and thanks for chairing the GO Virginia board and for your work. And we wanted to recognize you to talk about GO Virginia and your region. And I'll turn it over to you at this time. So thank you very much for being here. If we were in a room, I'd have them give you a round of applause, Billy.
Well, I don't know that that's necessary, but thank you for the nice introduction, Barry. And thank you so much for arranging to do this blueprint in the format that you're doing. And clearly the participation that we've gotten today is, I think, outstanding. So I've got about 4 things, and I will try to cover them fairly quickly. You've covered some of them already about our regional economy and those types of things. I'm working off of slightly different numbers. I think yours had average salary, mine's median. As you saw on the map, we're made up of the Fredericksburg area, the Northern Neck, the Middle Peninsula. Those are the common names. The average median salary for Region 6 is $49,000 a year. However, there's a little bit of kind of population difference and income difference there, because the Fredericksburg region's median income is $50,000 a year, whereas the Northern Neck and the Middle Peninsula are in the middle 30s. So we've got a little bit different sort of thing there. The other thing that's rather interesting about our region is that we have a number of our counties that are located in the MSAs of either DC Metro, Richmond Metro, or the Virginia Beach, Norfolk Metro, and trying to maintain our own identity and hopefully over time not get, diluted by being part of those larger metros. We think our strength certainly lies in our location along sort of that urban crescent that you mentioned. We think some of our strength lies in our people, which is probably a very common answer that you may get, but we've got 100,000 plus people that leave our region every day to go work in either Northern Virginia, Maryland, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, or into Richmond. And so we think we've got a quality workforce. We just need more jobs located or more businesses located in our region. And we have, a diverse group of industries, and I'll talk about those. Some of them are, in a way, legacy industries to Virginia: aquaculture, seafood, commercial fishing, forestry and wood products, and paper and manufacturing. And then we think we've got, some of the what I would call more new industries, if you will, distribution and logistics, information data centers, and certainly the professional, scientific, technical sort of things that now fit in our region. And we think these all represent a good cluster for us. We already have, decent economic activity in these. We just want to grow them and expand them. As we look to where we think we need to grow and invest to support the diversity in our region, the survey hit it. It's broadband and the need to connect our entire region through high-speed internet. We have too many of our businesses and too many of our K-12s, frankly, that are moving at the speed of dial-up. And we have to do that because we cannot get entrepreneurs and others to locate in this region if don't have the access to sort of the World Wide Web and the online economy. Workforce continues to be a challenge for us. We are seeing within our region that we have a higher demand for employees than we have people coming back to work. Sort of that mismatch. That hopefully will resolve itself in the third or fourth quarter. So we have that sort of workforce issue going on, and then we've also got. I think we need more support for our entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think we've got much more activity going on in the Fredericksburg area related to government employees and those types of things, but that could be better than it is, but certainly more in the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula. There's a lot of bright people out there that are trying to do things, and we just need to help support them so that they can meet their goals. As we look about how we're going to move forward in Region 6 post-pandemic and challenges, I think we've got to getting people back to work. Will certainly help things, but giving those industries that were adversely impacted during the downturn, the aquaculture, the forestry, the manufacturing businesses, giving what support or opportunity we can through GO Virginia to bring them back, if you will. And I think, for opportunities for us, Barry, I think there is something that our region can offer, and I would describe it as a sense of community. And there are opportunities for businesses to locate in our area and become part of the rural communities or the suburban communities such as Fredericksburg and get a sense of community that they may not find in other places. So with that, I'll go ahead and end and yield the rest of my time to somebody else.
Well, thank you so much, Billy, for those highlights, and again, for pulling the region together with great skills and a plan that I think represents the diversity of your region. Curry, I want to recognize Curry Roberts, someone who doesn't need to be introduced to you all, but someone who I could say thank you for over 35 years of public and private service, significant at the state level with Governor Beliles, and obviously now the president, and has been for a while, of the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance at the University of Washington. Thanks for leading that effort in that region and the other public service that you have done. And I also want to recognize you as you're representing Virginia Economic Developers Association, which many people may not know even, Curry, what that is on the call. So I'll yield to you to talk a little bit about VEDA and what's VEDA's view of blueprint and economic development. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Barry. And can I yield my time back to Billy? He was doing such a great job. I hate to cut in on him because he was covering everything. But I do want to also thank the Chamber, all you all's work to update the blueprint. I'm pleased, as you mentioned, to represent the Virginia Economic Developers Association, or VEDA, but also the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance at the University of Mary Washington, and to the economic developers across Region 6. The conversation today promises to be both productive and pivotal as we think about Blueprint Virginia and GO Virginia Region 6 and the entire Commonwealth. As you know, VEDA is a strong voice for shaping economic development policy in Virginia. We also strive to be the leading source of effective education and networking for economic development professionals across the state. Now more than ever before, economic development, as Billy has pointed out, is really everybody's business. Looking back over the past year or so and at our shared experience with the pandemic, I think we can all agree that it is critical that we do everything in our power to get all Virginians back to work and to invigorate the Commonwealth's economy. VEDA's public policy platform aligns with that primary objective. Specifically, we recommend policy and budgetary action in three main areas. First, and again, sort of pivoting off of Billy's discussion about workforce, we are convinced that the future of Virginia's economic development success is the development, retention, and attraction of talent. From a business attraction standpoint, that is the first question. Before we get to taxes, before we get to sites, before we get to anything else, is where is the labor? And not only where is it, but what skill level, what educational attainment levels have they achieved? VEDA supports the Virginia Jobs Investment Program and the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program, two complementary efforts at VEDP that provide economic development projects with critical workforce training support. VEDA is also in favor of additional funding to build on the success of Workforce Credential Grant Program, also known as Fast Forward, a pay for performance initiative that creates and sustains a supply of credentialed workers to fill occupations where demand outstrips supply. The second major public policy focus area is promoting economic prosperity for all regions of Virginia, and in our case, for all the subregions that exist within Region 6. To be competitive, we must have fast, reliable ways to move people, goods, energy, and most importantly, again, as Billy put it, and information from every corner of the Commonwealth. VEDA supports increased funding for the Business Ready Sites program and other efforts to prepare viable sites for businesses looking to locate or expand in Virginia. Minimizing time and mitigating risks of the path to the market make all the difference in today's fast-moving and competitive environment. And if I could just go off on that for a second, Barry, I've been around a long time, and it used to be when you worked with economic development projects, you were talking about something that was 38 months down the road, 36 to 48 months down the road. Now you're talking 12 to 14 for them to be up and running. As you're also aware, we really have a very limited inventory of business-ready sites, and I think that's something that we could use additional leadership and help from the state. VEDA also supports funding the Virginia Telecommunication Initiative, as well as maintaining funding for GO Virginia. The third major public policy focus area is developing tools for competitiveness. We must strengthen and grow our economic development toolbox through existing incentives, sound tax policy, and the state's marketing program, and support for community revitalization. As we continue to make strides in these policy-related areas, consider priorities for Blueprint Virginia, we are confident Virginia can lead the nation in business attraction, formation, retention, and job growth. Again, I want to thank everybody who participated today. As Billy and Barry said, this is an excellent turnout, and if you scroll through the participants, they are geographically dispersed across the region, which is great to have this kind of participation. It's an important conversation, and I think we're in a great position to show the world how resilient Virginia's economy can be when we all work together. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Curry. Well done. And thank you to VEDA for the partnership and growing Virginia's economy. We also wanted to have an opportunity to hear a couple of minutes from one of our advisory council representatives, and Kat Mosley is here to share with us. For those of you who may not know her, she is with AES Clean Energy as Director of Community Relations, and she works and leads a team of people around Virginia where AES Clean Energy is developing and operating. I also want to thank from her company, Helen Humphreys, who serves on the Virginia Chamber Advisory Council directly and on our Corporate Sustainability and Environment Industry Council. So Kat, if we were in a room, I'd give you a round of applause, but welcome, and I recognize you for a few minutes as well.
Thank you so much, Barry, for the kind introduction. And on behalf of AES, it's my honor to be with you today. Many of you knew us previously as S-Power, but we merged with the AES Corporation's US-based clean energy development business in January of this year. S-Power had been owned jointly by AES and Alberta Investment Management Corporation since 2017, and we're now very proud to be one AES, which is based in Arlington, and we have offices in Richmond and around the country and the world. With this merger, we're thrilled to also have increased our membership with the Virginia Chamber and to be a part of creating Blueprint Virginia 2030. Most of you know we have our Spotsylvania County Solar Energy Center under construction, which is close to fully operational. That's where I am today, and I didn't want to take my hard hat out because I might have hat ed. But this almost 500 megawatt solar farm is the largest solar facility east of the Rockies. And it has been our pleasure to work with the Spotsylvania County community on this project, which is bringing more than $37 million in economic benefits to the area. We also have our Skipjack Solar Project under construction in Charles City County, and our Cavalier Solar Project was recently unanimously approved in the counties of Surrey and Isle of Wight. With Virginia's leadership in lowering carbon emissions through the Virginia Clean Economy Act, we consider Virginia our home and a priority state. And as members of the Virginia business community, it's important to have discussions like we're having today to develop policy solutions that will support our Commonwealth's economic climate and ensure Virginia remains a great place to do business. This Blueprint Virginia 2030 provides a unique opportunity for leaders from all regions and industries across the Commonwealth to come together and work collaboratively. I'm very excited to be a part of the advisory panel and look forward to our continued work. And just a little bit, there's been a lot of discussion today on workforce. With more than 1,000 workers employed currently through our Virginia projects, workforce and educational initiatives are a priority for us. And we have been involved with the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium, the Virginia Department of Education's Energy Careers Cluster Curriculum, which launched this year. And we recently joined forces with major brands like Microsoft and Boeing as members of Discovery Education's STEM Careers Coalition, which offers free resources to students and teachers on budding careers in STEM fields like renewable energy. I look forward to participating in today's discussion and our continued conversations, and I'll turn it back over to you, Barry.
Thank you, Kat. And I think your hat looks perfect today, and I'm glad you're wearing it. I wanted to say to everyone here, it's now time for us to hear from you. We had a couple of questions that we submitted. What would you see as the most impactful improvement your region could make to help it grow and prosper? What priorities do you have for your region that you want to make sure we include in 2030? So I am going to open up and ask you to use the raise your hand feature or put your question in the chat, and then Nicole will call on you. But I would like to recognize for input first, Susan Spears. Again, don't need to introduce Susan. I think you all know her as a leader in your region, leads the Regional Chamber of Commerce. Susan, it's great to see you and recognize you for comments on these questions and anything else you would like to tell the group. So welcome.
Hi, Barry. Thank you. And it's terrific to see so many of our community partners that I can actually see right here. I know, Curry, you've disappeared on me, but I enjoyed hearing from you. Billy, good to see you. Kat, all of you. Kat, you're in the region today, and wish I could get out there to see you, but it's really good to see folks. And I look forward to December 3rd when we can actually be in person, Barry. That's terrific. I believe the chairman of our board is in the meeting. While I can't see him, I want to recognize Eric Fletcher, the chairman of the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber Board of Directors. He's with Mary Washington Healthcare, and so many of our other members and partners that are here today. This collaboration and all collaborations are really what will keep us moving forward on the right track here in Virginia. It's really our strength, the way we come together and work together. So much has already been said that I will just echo. I don't have anything profound. I will just say that we're right on track with our discussion of what's most important. Transportation infrastructure remains a top issue among the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber membership for this portion of the GO Virginia part of the region, if you will. Broadband is right there with it, Billy. But the transportation issues are just so significant here. We almost forgot about it for a minute or two in the last year and a half with COVID and how quiet everything was, but we quickly remembered and learned. At first I thought, did I forget how to drive too? When I got back out there, it was so awful. But anyway, that will be ramping back up. You'll be hearing a lot more from us about transportation soon. And we look forward to helping with improvements and the next steps on things to help with broadband. So much was said already about workforce. Curry's question of where is the labor, development, retention, and traction of talent is huge for all of us. And certainly that's a big conversation point right now and among the members of the chamber here. And we are putting together some discussion panels locally to talk about that and what our next steps could look like. We're also putting together some discussions for young professionals, so we can make sure to tap into the future and what's on the minds of folks beyond some of us in the room that have been at it for a while. We think that's important to hear from them. I've got listed here too, yes, technology, the top three things in the survey. My notes are all over the place. Curry, I didn't do what you did, and you had like a script, which was impressive, and I enjoyed seeing that. But
somebody sent it to me, Susan. I didn't write it.
I chose to kind of be a little more, okay, I'm going to listen and I'm going to add in transportation, innovation, and business climate. Really, those three. And I'll just go ahead and tie in broadband right there. So we're all on the same page. Those 9 sections in the blueprint, we fold right into all of them. I think I answered more questions. I might have checked the box around military, retirees, and some of the pieces there may have ranked slightly higher than overall, but all of that is where we're headed. So we want to do everything we can to decrease the threats to the business climate. Certainly concerns there as we move forward, and hopefully we can come together and do things to keep Virginia as a right to work state, and so many other issues that are out there. Okay, I can start rambling, so I'll stop. Thank you. And also, Barry, I loved seeing the sponsor list for Blueprint and how strong and the strength and resilience there. Our corporate partners that continue to look at Virginia and say how we work together and support these efforts are really important to be recognized. So thanks for sharing that, and I want to recognize them too.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. And Susan, I am asking Nicole to keep you as a panelist because some of the comments or questions that have come in our other regions, it's often the chamber or the local Go Virginia rep. So all of you all, maybe someone I call on to answer some of these questions. So thank you for being here, and we'll call on you as we deem necessary. I would like to recognize Mylan Tran. I mentioned Mylan earlier. She is with the Asian Chamber of Commerce, one of our partners across the Commonwealth, represents an important part of the culture of the Commonwealth. And Mylan, good to see you. It looks like you're at a conference already, but it may not be real people behind you. I'm never quite sure when I look at people's background. But
yes, they are real. You can see our chairman on the back right there. But thank you very much. I appreciate each of the speakers. I believe I visit Miss Susan Spear's office, and of course Curry, when we try to do an office in the Fredericksburg region being a very dynamic. So my question is, with all the regions that I participate in this wonderful forum, small business is the blood of the economy, and for Fredericksburg Region Alliance and the various communities, what progress have you made, let's say in the last 5 years, in regarding to promoting more small business development for the small business communities?
It's a good question, Marlene. Thank you. I will turn to Curry. If you don't mind, I'll call an audible, Curry, and ask you to chime in on that. How is small business viewed, and what are some of the programs to develop small business? We'll recognize you.
Sure. Thank you, Barry. Marlene, it's good to see you again.
Yes.
We need to visit in person and not virtually.
Well, soon.
A couple of areas. Traditionally, the role of servicing small businesses is in our region has typically fallen just to the SBA and the SBDC in the region. We have expanded the role of the Rappahannock Economic Development Corporation, which is an SBA 504 lender. They've expanded their marketing not only in the immediate Fredericksburg area, but they've actually picked up some projects in the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula. I think, though, where the real step's going to be, and Billy touched on this, that we unfortunately at the moment, but we're working our way through this under GO Virginia, we have not developed a region-wide ecosystem plan, which many of other GO Virginia regions have done. We are updating the entrepreneurial ecosystem component of the region's growth and diversity plan. That should be completed in September. Then the next step is going to be, how do we build a broader, more vibrant ecosystem across the entire region? So I think what I'm saying, it's not stand by, there's more to come. I think there has been some progress, but there are a lot of players in that space, and we're just not well coordinated. And I think that's something where we would like to improve on, especially over the next 4 or 5 years. And I hope that answers your question. And I'd also love to have you come visit. We sit down and explore it further.
I volunteer to help you with any diversity and equity component of your expansion plan. Virginia Asian Chamber of Commerce is very devoted to help as many small businesses as we can within our communities, but we are realizing that multicultural newcomers diversity is increasing in growth. That includes Hispanic, Native American, Asian American. So we would love to reconnect again, Curry.
Sure. And the other thing, Melanie, and you hit on a very good point, it's not just in the small business area, but the last 2 or 3 prospects that we've worked with, there's sometimes international companies. There are lots of questions about diversity and inclusion across the region. We have a call coming up where the top 3 questions, that's what they want to talk about. And that's becoming a bigger and bigger question about how diverse is your community, how inclusive is it, how welcoming is it. So it's really, we're having to pivot a little bit and pull in some information that maybe we didn't have in the past that we will need to use. So very, very good point. Thank you.
But you can actually
Thank you so
use.
much. Michelle, I'd like to recognize Michelle Zajour. Michelle is, I recognized him earlier. If we could promote Michelle, we'd be happy to hear from him, who leads the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Michelle?
Barry, it's a pleasure to be here with y'all, and really this is sensational, getting these blueprint for Virginia together from around the state with all these leaders. But I just wanted to touch on what William just said. One thing I don't know if we've talked about that much is the international possibilities. I know, like Milan and myself, I do think there's a lot of opportunities that we can better do to enhance the international business climate and for international trade. And I know we deal a lot in Latin America and Central America, North America, free trade agreements. But I just think that with the Port of Virginia and this is an area of diversity that we might not focus on that much. And just wanted to touch back on that.
thank you so much for your partnership and for being here and raising that point. We have, as part of the Blueprint 2030 Business Climate Plan, a special committee on international trade led by Mike Ligon, who is a Universal executive, but also helped develop the international trade plan the governor announced a few years ago. We want to include the importance of international trade, obviously great assets in the Commonwealth, in order to support more growth, especially in exports. We have a lot of small companies that can export product overseas, and we want to make sure the programs we have in place assist all population groups for export. So good point. Thank you for joining. We have a number of questions that are in writing. I want to recognize Nicole and ask her to prioritize those, and they could go to any member of the panel, Nicole, but if you'll read them out loud, then I will try to recognize the panelists to respond.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Barry. And as a reminder, if you would like to provide any observations to any of the questions or anything else, please feel free to use the raise your hand feature and we'll recognize you in order. I'm going to go ahead and read some of the questions from the chat. I apologize for not going in order, trying to group some of the similar thoughts that we've seen. But we saw a question that said, as Billy mentioned, there are significant differences among the different parts within Region 6. How can we recognize that while our regions have similarities, there are vast differences and there's no one size fits all model for the region? So if anybody that would like to respond to that question, we welcome you to do so. And Sharon Crabtree, I'm going to call on you next just so we know who's on deck.
So Billy, I'll chime in first. I know each region has its own approach to this. I just want to make an observation about economic growth. Some of you know I was a local government official for 8 years, and I learned during that time that prosperity did not occur along my municipal boundary. Prosperity occurred along my economic boundary. So I started working closely with fellow mayors, county leaders, because the people did business in economic regions, not in political boundaries. So in that case, I think the GO Virginia regions have been established and their boundaries for an appropriate purpose. But I will say that as the blueprint is being put together, we are looking for statewide themes that have regional focus. So as you all make recommendations, we're going to be recommending these statewide themes, but also if you have specific transportation projects, Susan, you want us to include, we want to have those lists. If you have specific site development, we want to make sure we're responsive to that. So we will be approaching it from that perspective. I would like, Billy, for you to talk a little bit about how, or Curry, how the GO Virginia Region 6 is managing the difference in your communities and how you're prioritizing those. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I probably should have made this statement on the front end just to get everybody a little grounding. But what I consider probably one of the best things about GO Virginia is that it is bottoms up economic development that can happen in rural regions. It can happen in the suburban regions like Fredericksburg. It is not a top down economic development similar to VEDP. And that's no criticism, it's just different. And so we're able to actually try to do grassroots grants that help with, probably one of our best ones is one where we partnered with Rappahannock Community College to develop a welding program for a manufacturer. And I think we've had 80 people who's actually have seen their incomes more than double as a result of creating that welding program for some trailer manufacturing in the Northern Neck. And so I think, I don't know that we'll ever get equity. I don't know that everything will be level, but we are able to focus on things that can happen in the rural communities to give them an advantage and a chance to create better paying jobs somewhere.
Very good. Curry, would you like to chime in or add any comments before we go to our next?
What I think the best benefit of GO Virginia has been, there is more collaboration across the entire region. I've provided assistance to Westmoreland County and to Richmond County on some site stuff they were working on. They're not in our footprint, but it's because of the interaction that GO Virginia creates. When we're looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem program, we had 3 individual stakeholder sessions, one in the Northern Neck, one down in West Point, and then one in Fredericksburg, with some key leadership in each of those areas. By nature, you have to do that under GO Virginia. I agree with Billy. You know, geography dictates a lot of things, assets dictate a lot of things, but you know, creating more cross collaboration, I think, would benefit everyone, and I think that's the biggest benefit of GO Virginia.
Yeah, be happy to recognize Kat, you or Susan. Susan, if you have anything to chime in on, certainly want you to feel free to do so.
No, I'm good with going to the next, so we can hear more.
Thank you. Nicole, who would we like to recognize next?
Yes, so next we are going to recognize Susan Crabtree. I just promoted you to a panelist, so you can unmute and turn your camera on if you would like to, but we welcome you to address our panelists and attendees. Sharon, while you are getting your camera or your mic unmuted, we can go ahead and transition to one of the other questions while you're getting adjusted here. So we do have some great observations from Susan Horn, as you all may know, with Lead Virginia. She had mentioned expanding career opportunities through apprenticeships and internships, enhancing visibility for students of credentialing and career opportunities that doesn't necessarily require a 4-year college degree, building a robust entrepreneurial ecosystem that includes levels of startup funding, advisory, and mentoring experiences. So really all through the lens of apprenticeships, internships, and credentialing. I know it's important statewide and it's important in this region. So as we are waiting for Sharon, I just want to give you, Barry, and our panelists an opportunity to kind of react to those observations from Susan Horn.
Susan, thank you. I'm sorry I don't get to see you, but for those of you who don't know, Susan is the executive director of Lead Virginia. It's the statewide program that I think has over 500, maybe over 600 alumni now. And it's a great program for executives to go through to get exposed to the features of the Commonwealth. And thanks for your partnership. Her ideas include a number of topics, including apprenticeships, mentoring. Kat, I would be glad to recognize you or Susan Spears to talk about any of those topics that she mentioned. If you have an internship program or a mentorship program that you've seen, those are very important.
Yeah, I will just mention that we do use internships. We don't have a formalized program currently, but
Are you trying to put yourself on it or no?
I have interns, and one of them was from Fredericksburg. She's no longer with us, but you know, we also have an Energy for Talent program based out of our Arlington office. If anyone is interested in that, they can contact me directly at kat.mosley@aes.com, and I'll put that in the chat. But you know, our focus more recently has been on K-12 education, but I'm a big believer in internships and apprenticeships, and hopefully we will see more to come in those areas.
Thank you. Susan, did you have anything to add on that topic before we go to the next person?
I would just say for anybody that's listening that may not be aware, the Chamber will work closely with both Germanna Community College and the University of Mary Washington to help support some of those partnerships back to the business community. We shift from time to time, like with things like COVID, it just kind of puts things on hold. So we'll be ramping things like that back up. But certainly reach out to us so we can help make some of those introductions and support that. We've done that for decades. So making you aware that that's out there.
Thank you for that program. I think Sharon Crabtree, you are now online and I can see you. So we'll turn it over to you for a question or comment.
Okay, thank you. I am representing the Virginia Partnership, the Virginia Promise Partnership in the childcare industry. I've been in this industry for about 35 years, and this is the first time we've experienced support from the federal and state resources. And I just want to say that we are so appreciative of that help. It has made significant impact for us. I wanted to stress the need to address access to affordable and quality childcare for all of our families. We need to figure out how we can find greater support through shared resources to help reduce the cost so childcare centers can operate more effectively and affordably. As you know, we're looking at payroll increasing about 25% due to wage increases. We need help to provide benefits for our teachers. There's a high rate of turnover and there's difficulty finding qualified teachers. We need help with training and educational costs for our teachers so that we can increase the level of quality that the children are receiving to help foster healthy child development and school readiness. I didn't know if these resources are being considered currently. So that is my question, just to find out what we are planning to do to provide this opportunity for our families and children in our area.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. I will quickly expand on it. The Blueprint Virginia has listed early childhood education as a priority. More recently, we at the Virginia Chamber had put forward recommendations for the significant amount of money that this governor and the special session are getting ready to review. And it includes a number of things we've talked about today, but among them are childcare. And we know that there are a number of reasons why the workforce has not fully been restored. And while you hear a lot about the continuing federal subsidy, and that is a portion of it, we also know from our surveys that childcare and the ability to get the parent back into the stream of commerce is dependent upon having quality childcare. It's equally important to recognize that childcare is part of early childhood education. And so the connectivity of those and the Virginia Promise, we are supporting that. We are fully in and leaning in on that. And it's among our recommendations, as well as some of the other things that have been mentioned today, including broadband and other initiatives that site development that we're recommending money go to. But thanks for who you represent. Thanks for the good work you've been doing. It's significant, it's meaningful, and it will continue to be important for us to solve on this. And it's going to require a public-private partnership for us to solve this for our community, our Commonwealth, and our country. But it's a very important point. I'm glad we were able to get you recognized to speak about it today. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you for that opportunity to
Welcome.
share.
Nicole, I know we're coming up against our adjourned time, but is there someone else that we want to recognize or another comment before we move towards closing comments?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and read one more question in the chat. Again, if we don't get to your question in the chat, a member of our team or GO Virginia or VEDA, whoever you address the question to, will ensure that we get a response for you. I'm going to read one more question and give the opportunity for anyone else that would like to provide some final thoughts to use the raise your hand feature and we'll call on you. But we've seen a couple of questions and observations about this, so I'm going to kind of combine them. But we saw a few comments on the need for affordable housing, use of commercial spaces, develop mixed use spaces. Localities may need to look at permit requirements to enable construction. But overall, we saw a few observations and questions on the greater need for affordable housing in the region. So Barry or any of our panelists, if you'd like to kind of react to that overall observation on the need for housing, please do so now.
Thanks, Nicole, and whoever submitted those questions. Thanks for pointing out what I see as a growing important part of economic development and prosperity. I will yield to the other panelists to talk about it in their region, but from a macro perspective, we've seen the importance of housing's contribution to economic growth and development across the Commonwealth, and more site selection consultants are looking at affordable housing. But I will yield, Billy, to you. I'm not sure if it's a priority within or if it's a question more for Curry or Susan, but what is the region's perspective on housing, and how are you situated?
I would defer to Susan and Curry because I think that's more in their wheelhouse. Mine would just be personal opinion.
Which is valuable. Curry, do you want to weigh in, and Susan?
I didn't know you had an affordable housing problem, Billy. Yes, I don't know if Kim McClellan with the Realtors is on, or Kate Gibson with the George Washington Regional Commission. They've done quite a bit of work in this area in working on, at least for our planning district, for the planning district that Fredericksburg is in, that there is a disconnect in certain pockets of the region in terms of what is affordable for the workforces here. We then have the further pressure on real estate values here because of the commuting population, who they don't really move here to take a job in Northern Virginia. I think they have the job in Northern Virginia and they move here because the cost of housing is significantly lower. So that does create some structural imbalances from time to time. And obviously that's being exacerbated with the current housing market. But again, the real work in that area, we participated, but the Fredericksburg Association of Realtors has done an excellent job in this issue and pointing out, some long-term challenges we're going to have if it's not addressed.
Well said. Susan, did you want to comment on housing?
No, I'm with Curry. I would defer to our colleagues there that can give more information.
Thank you so much. Well, I would like to say on this point, we welcome surveys, we welcome the studies, we welcome the strategic plans, and we would like to include housing as a part of Blueprint Virginia 2030. It's one of our areas of focus, and we would definitely value the work that's been done by your stakeholders in your region. Nicole, I think we're just past the time of a promised adjournment. But I do want to close by thanking our sponsors. I want to thank our co-hosts, and I certainly want to thank Billy and Curry and Kat and Susan and others who spoke today. This is an important part of the Blueprint process, which is the regional gathering of information. And this has been a very productive session for us. Thank you for participating in the survey. A big turnout today and a big turnout in our survey. And we will continue to encourage you to take the survey if you would like, but we also have a statewide survey. If you want to think about statewide issues, you can go and take the statewide survey. And then I really hope and pray we can all have a great summer and fall, and I get to see some of you in person and look forward to doing that a little bit later this year. And then again on December 3rd, where we can gather in person and unveil the total blueprint and work with the new administration and the General Assembly on keeping Virginia the best state for business, and working together will create a brighter future for all of our Commonwealth. Thank you all so much. And with that, we'll stand adjourned, and I wish you all a great 4th of July as we celebrate our nation's birthday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Great program.